We've been spending quite a lot of time in coastal areas, and we decided that we would like to head to the mountains. So we were going to head to the Sierra in California.
And that did not happen. So in this video, we're going to share what did actually happen on our travel.
First up, there were a couple factors that delayed our travels into the Sierra, and that put us in a bad weather situation.
Yeah, unfortunately, a couple of things came up that delayed us about a week on the original departure date that we had in mind. And the weather, the week we originally planned to leave was great. The week we actually did leave, it was not great. It was lows in the 20s, possible snows, and not a good situation.
Yeah, and we've had that happen before, and we were able to stick around for a little bit, but just because of our overall travel plans, that kind of just threw a wrench into things, and we were traveling with some friends this time around, and they weren't too keen on taking their new rig into snow and ice, potential bad weather and stuff, and we didn't want to have to deal with that either because we were looking for warmer weather.
Yeah, and we were still hopeful when we left that we could somehow rework our schedule to, kind of wait out the cold weather and make that work, but unfortunately that didn't happen.
So it turns out that weather was actually the least of our concerns, or at least not as big a factor as some of the other things. When we were leaving our most recent campsite that we were going to start heading south out of, we were putting the stabilizer jacks up, and Susan said, "Did you forget to put the slides in all the way?" And I said, "No, I didn't. I put them in all the way, and I'm positive." And so I looked over there, and the slides had popped out some. So, we thought, oh, well, there might be something with that. And so I just went ahead and put them back in, and then went ahead and put the jacks up and had it hooked up to the truck. And then a little bit
about
later,
40 miles down the road, happened to look in the mirrors and notice, they popped out again.
Yeah, so the slides are sticking out quite a bit. I mean, several inches. I mean, very noticeably when you just look in the rear view mirror, which is quite disconcerting for a number of reasons. But anyway, so we pulled over immediately to assess what's going on, and I went ahead and put them back in, and I think we were probably 100 miles from where we were going to make our stop for the night, and so we decided that we would just travel and keep an eye on it, and we had our friends following behind us in a fifth wheel, and we were radioed so they could communicate with us, and so they went ahead and gave us the play-by-play, and they did come out, and they kind of stayed out just a little bit, and we just kind of white-knuckled it all the way to camp, and then we had a little bit of a chat about what a little
bit of a reevaluation session there.
What do we do about this situation? So it turns out that there's definitely an issue. They weren't going to stay in, so we needed to do something, and we weren't quite ready to go, maybe go to a shop or something and do that type of thing. We wanted to get somewhere where we could stay for a while and go from there. So my friend Tim and Donna, the couple of great friends that we were traveling with, he suggested, doing some type of slide locks.
Yeah, like a brace.
Some type of brace. And I had some braces in the back of the truck, some things that could be kind of used like that. And he had a few, but we talked about it a little bit. And I even looked up online just to see what something like that would cost. And it was going to be quite a bit. We have 4 slides, but only 3 of them were going to be needing that, but 2 each. And it just seemed like a very high cost for something that we'd rather just fix the issue than use locks like that. So Tim suggested that we just go ahead and make some. So I slept on it and thought about it a little bit, called Susan's uncle and talked to him. He seconded the idea of having some kind of slide lock. So the next morning, woke up bright and early and drove into a town where they had a lumber supply company, and I bought some studs, some 2x4s essentially, and made, what was it? See, two, four,
Six.
six braces that I went ahead and put into the slides. Tim went ahead and cut them, and I went in and started installing them. And some of them were a little bit hard to get to because all the slides are in, so you have them in to put these braces in place. So it was a little bit cramped in there and everything, but it was just a little nerve-wracking just thinking about what could happen.
Yeah, and for one of them, we have this cabinet that we have actually shown in a video before. We'll put that link in the description. Things that we did not particularly like about our RV, and one of them was this particular cabinet that has some very sharp corners. And unfortunately, as Bernie was trying to put in one of these slide braces, jumped up very hard and hit his head on that corner, and we think probably had at least a concussion.
Yeah, well, it definitely wasn't, I mean, you know, I don't blame the manufacturer for this. I mean, it was definitely my error, but I was essentially standing near the counter, and there's an overhang cabinet, but I had to thrust myself up over the counter to get my body way down to reach into a very small space to put a slide lock in between what would be the counter and the kitchen slide. And it's a very narrow place, so I had to really thrust myself up onto the counter, and when I did that, I slammed right into the corner edge of this cabinet, went right back where I came from, and it hurt quite a bit. I took my hat off, and it was it was an egg there. It was swollen pretty good, and I just didn't feel like I had the time to do much with it at the time. There was just a little bit of blood. It wasn't even, I mean, it was just a little tiny trickle. I put some super glue on it and sealed it. I've done that before with Susan's head, actually. We were out in the middle of nowhere, and she cracked her head open, and so I just super glued it, and then she never needed stitches.
Yeah.
So it worked for her. I used it on mine now, and it went well, and it was quite nerve-wracking though.
Yeah,
to do
and
all
I
that.
mean, we were, you know, hopeful that this fix was going to work, but with this situation coming up, combined with the weather, we had another chat and decided that it was probably going to be best to try to quickly as possible get to some warmer weather and get somewhere where we could you know, better assess the situation and make sure that these slide braces were going to work. And so our trip was changed to the beautiful Sierra Yosemite trip that we had planned to pretty much straight shot south.
Yeah. Well, it was good to put those braces in though, because they did take away a good bit of the stress. Not the stress that something's wrong with our rig and it's got to be fixed, but the stress that they might come out on the freeway and hurt somebody or destroy something.
Right, and it so also made it to where we had to pretty much keep the slides in anywhere we stopped, because if we put them out, then that meant taking out the braces, putting it back in, and then not knowing if what the problem was, if putting them in and out again was going to further the problem. So we just felt that it was better to just keep them in and try to get somewhere that we could you know, better assess it.
Yeah, we did end up putting them out for a few days at pretty much one of our final stops before we were getting to some place where there was more likelihood of getting repair help. But you know, on the stress matter, that's something that I think is, you know, as some of you recall our breakdown video about a year from this one, it was quite a stressful time, but at the same time we maintained our cool, and we were able to not escalate things, you know, by worrying so much that we couldn't get things done. But I will admit, when I was doing the slide thing, I was a little bit hurried, and that's probably why I hit my head. And our friend Donna, she just had some words of advice for me to just, you know, slow down, take it easy, and you know, that was good. I was glad she said that, because it made me pause and think, you know what, you know, just, you know, I don't have to be anywhere right away. So, you know, we just slowed down and headed south, like Susan said.
So the next thing that came up was since we were traveling longer distances between stops, one thing that we tend to do, since we have our whole house with us, is if we need to take a bathroom break or something, we can easily just find a pull-out or something, pull off, and use our bathroom with our water pump. Well, the water pump wasn't working.
Well, it just kept working.
It kept
actually.
working.
It was
Actually,
working, but it wouldn't stop working.
working.
It was just, just running, which indicated to me that there was probably a leak somewhere. And then I noticed that the toilet was running some, and so I pretty much surmised that there was a leak with the toilet valve. That was another thing that I talked to Susan's Uncle Paul about, just to make sure I was on the right page. I pretty much figured I was, but anyway, that was leaking quite a bit, so that when you turned on the pump, it wouldn't turn off. And the way that I figured it, I mean, I could see that it was running just a little bit, and then as I put my foot underneath the lever, it's a foot lever, as I put my foot on the lever and pulled up with it, I noticed that it would make the pump go off. So anyway, I ordered a kit for that to fix the toilet. I'm just going to rebuild the whole thing.
Yeah.
Every part that I can put in there that comes with the kit, I'm going to go ahead and rebuild. But it's not that big of a deal. We'll work that out. But that was just another thing that was just a little bit of little bit of an issue.
Yeah, and this time we also had a little bit cosmetic damage, I guess. Usually we've been very lucky with everything getting there in one piece, and this time we weren't quite as lucky. We had some issues that had to be fixed. So.
Yeah, there's like some wooden ornate type pieces that are in the middle of the top of the slide, and we had one fall off some time ago, and I just put it aside. It wasn't really hurting anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything. It's just an aesthetic thing. And so I noticed that they had put it on with these very long, I don't know, probably 3-inch plus staples, very thin ones. I don't have that kind of thing. My compressor doesn't power, pneumatic tools and that type of thing. I don't have that. So as we were driving this time, one of them came off on another slide, so I figured, no, I'm just going to get them done. So I picked up some very fine, long, black screws, and I just screwed them in, and I actually don't mind the way they look. I think it looks pretty good, and they're not coming off.
They're not coming off now.
That slide will fall out before them things come off. So so that's good. And just little odds and ends, we were finding little things wrong, and you just got to tack in little pieces of trim, but no biggie.
Yeah.
We took care of it.
It just kind of made us feel like, every time we stopped, there was some new issue.
What are we going to find? So. We're a little skeptical about opening the door, So, yeah.
And then since we had our friends following us, they started noticing that intermittently our right brake light and turn signal were not working anymore.
So I stopped and took a look at that, and it was great having them follow behind us, because they could be our blinker as it were, and but went ahead and took out a good bulb, put it in, found out that bulb works. It does not work in that one. So then I figured, well, there's a short somewhere, some kind of electrical problem, something that is going to take a little bit more than pulling over to the side of the road and doing along the highway. But come to find out, the problem seemed to have been that since we were around a lot of sea air, salt air and moisture, that we probably had some leads on the wire harness, for plugging in the lights from the fifth wheel of the truck there. Was probably making a poor connection, so I sprayed it really good with some contact cleaner, and they're working now as best as we can tell. So far, so good. But that's just a little pro tip, if you will, that watch that kind of thing. Because that typically is exposed all the time when you're stopped places, and especially when you're in a very humid location or near the ocean. That can be quite corrosive on that type of thing. So it's good to take care of them, clean them, protect them.
So we finally got south enough to where we were in a warm climate and decided to just stop and take a break for a few days and actually try putting the slides out,
we're in Nevada,
getting hooked up. Yeah, in Nevada. We were going to hook everything up. and found something else that had been perfectly fine when we left the
previous
coast.
location. Yeah.
Was not.
Well, it was our sewer hose. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I can understand getting a leak in a sewer hose or maybe it breaking somehow or something like that. But I got the sewer hose out, and every single little coil area, every crevice along the thing was cracked completely through.
Completely.
I mean, it
Tons
wouldn't
of
hold
cracks.
anything. And I'm glad that I discovered it before I went to use it.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't believe it. So I had to ride in several miles into a town and go grab a new sewer hose, and I guess maybe this one lasted almost 5 years. So,
Yeah, so I guess it was
that's good.
time.
We got our mileage out of that one, but it's just
was-
just weird. I mean,
Yeah.
because we were kind of thinking. I mean, we weren't laying around, moaning about what next and stuff like that. But it was in the back of our mind, like we were just worried about looking at anything or
Yeah.
something because what's gonna, happen next. But anyway, so the whole sewer hose was kaput, and we had to replace that. But it really, isn't that just life? I mean,
Yeah.
no matter what you're doing, where you're going, or any of that kind of stuff. I mean, things happen. It's just,
Yep.
it's more about how we handle things than what happens. But when you're going through it's not a whole bunch of laughs.
No, it just feels
But-
like it's just one thing on top of another,
Yeah.
and it can overwhelm you. But we did our best, and
Yeah, made it through it.
Yep.
We're here now. Yeah, but that's all in the past now, and we've been kind of bouncing around in California and Nevada and in Arizona, and that's where we're at now in Arizona, and we're just excited about putting some time into some videos and moving on.
yep. And so please remember to share, subscribe, comment, and don't forget to click on that little notification bell.
Thanks for watching. Still in there?
Yes.
But this thing actually really locks. Can you get out? Try
No.
it. Just try. There you go. This is you're witnessing an authentic jailbreak, which isn't going too well. Oh. You've earned your freedom.
Free at last.